Are we rolling? Here we go. I know there's a power and a presence in, through, and as all people, all places, all events, all things, all of time and space, all of life. And I know that whatever this power and presence is, it is absolute, it is infinite, it is beyond any concept of time and space. And I know that it being all, in all, as all, is all. So there is only one. And out of that oneness, all of creation takes place. The infinite, the absolute, is individualized as itself, in form, as creation. And so I know that what I am is an individualized expression of spirit. I am that point of the divine, focused in time and space as me. And as that point of spirit, I speak my word as the word of God, calling forth all of the power of creation. And I know for and about everyone in this class that we are clear, we are powerful, we are healthy, happy, and whole in every way. I know that we consciously direct our thought, and in so doing direct the law of mind to manifest heaven on earth. I know that we are blessed by being a part of this teaching, this center, this class, and each other. And so with great, great gratitude for another chance to dig a little bit deeper, to learn a little bit more, to manifest a little bit better, with great gratitude for all that this class holds for us, I simply release this treatment into all that spirit is, because I know that spirit is in it all. And together we say, and so it is. Wonderful. Is my microphone too loud? No. It sounds loud to me. Okay. Maybe because last week I didn't have one, so it's good. So, treatment demonstrations from last week. You're treating for each other, you're treating for yourself. Breezy.
I did twice as good as at the practitioner event that I've ever done at a show.
Yay! Yay! And was your partner treating for you for that? Excellent, excellent. Who else? Now I know you have had demonstrations. Remember your homework last week was to notice the things that were happening and either take a physical note or a mental note so that you don't discount all of the good you've got. Amanda and then Pegatha.
I was just making sure Louise wasn't here, which
Oh.
she's not. First we had been treating her for her knees, and I think she said something about that last week. So then, well, should we change it? Since yeah, she wanted to be treated for this job, and she got the job.
Yay, Louise got the job. Yay. Good, good. Pegatha.
Well, this isn't exactly what Jack has been treating for me for, but I was working on a stained glass project for somebody that I was supposed to have due on Tuesday, and 5 o'clock in the morning I discovered it didn't fit into the frame that I had made it for, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to bed. So all that day I worked on that and treated on it and everything, and I said it fit before, it's got to fit again, and when I went home later it did fit.
Yay. Because we expand and contract
Exactly.
the molecules of form with our thought. Excellent. Who else? Sandy.
This isn't something he was treating me on, but what I've worked on myself is I sold my house, got my house under contract within a week, and I got what I expected to get from the sale.
Yes. Where is your house?
Swananoa.
Oh, good.
Now I live just a couple miles away.
Oh, good. You moved closer. Yay. Yay. Who else? David, Mark.
I've been living under a pretty good stream of good correct knowing and right action, and that was challenged by a letter that I received from the town planner about removing some endangered tree, some protected trees that obviously needed to be removed, but nonetheless I was reprimanded and asked to come and explain myself before the town planner, and then when very well and did not disrail that stream of right action that I'm living under right now.
Yay, David. It's nice to go before the town planners and be told you're okay.
Yes.
You had already taken the trees down, right?
It was pretty obvious they needed to come down even though they were protected.
Yeah. Good. Breezy.
I forgot, I also got a check in the mail from the bank from where I refinanced my house.
Yay! In the flow, Agatha.
And I forgot, I went to a Bars Access swap yesterday and didn't know it, but I did a Bars run on this girl that had never had one before, and I got paid for it.
Yay! In the flowing. Who else? What about this side of the room? Elise.
Well, I mentioned that I was told I was gonna get a raise at work, but it actually happened, and I did get.
Yay!
Put this weekend an Oktoberfest event on at the bar, and it was like a record day.
I saw you guys were playing games.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I shared that notice.
Good, thanks.
Good for you.
It felt abundant, and that's what she's been shooting for, so.
Elise's husband, what's his name?
Ross.
Ross owns the micro brew place in West Asheville called The Whale on Haywood Road, and they had an Oktoberfest party.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Good. Who just had their hand up? Troy.
Yes, I worked the 3-day practitioners get-together, and as a assistant cook to Joy Lynn, who headed up the whole get-together. I'm not, I shouldn't call it a get-together,
The event.
but my words fail me.
It's okay.
But anyway, we made it through 3 days of shifting gears and nothing ever goes right, but you make it go right. And it was 3 days of that kind of stuff. So when we got done with everything, Joy Lynn called me over and said, Troy, she said, I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to give you a check for $500.
Oh my gracious, that's beautiful.
And I was shocked, and it was quite a bit more than I would have made at the amount per hour. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. I love Joy, and I will be tithing.
I was in on part of that.
And thank you so much.
And you worked your butt off. We had over 100 practitioners from all over the country show up, and they made our center their own. On Thursday evening, all day Friday, Firewalk Friday night, Saturday. Rick was here for 12 hours on Saturday, trying to put us together for Sunday, so we could walk in there and it looked like nothing had happened. But they ate 2 meals a day, and boy, we think we can eat, they can out-eat us. Really.
At the end of the line, you were scraping.
You were really.
The food was good, though.
So thank you for all your help, Troy. Anybody? Yay. Drew.
I've been treating for a little bit, but I'm also cognizant of the fact to just let it go on its own and don't mess with it. Leave it alone. And patience. And we're getting a couch, love seat, and an ottoman thingy, and a beautiful color, and super comfy, much more comfier than a futon. Because someone hadn't sold their house and said they would just, give it to us. Yeah, they don't need it. They're moving to a smaller place, and they haven't sold their house. They haven't sold their house in years. And then finally, we're just gonna rent it and move on, and we're gonna do this and here.
Right.
So we're getting the thing, and we're like, and comfy ottoman couch, every love seat with all.
Good.
Just like, oof.
Yay, Drew. You really only need to do one treatment. You treat every day because you're practicing and you're learning. But if you are crystal clear, you only need one treatment. If you're really clear, you don't need to treat at all. but not you, because you're learning and you're practicing. I was gonna have Sandy Myers get up, and then, I can't believe Sandy didn't want the stage. She's usually so good with that. But they have demonstrated their third vehicle given to them, flat out gifted to them. And when I was doing Science of Mind in the early years, my teacher told me anybody can demonstrate a pink slip. Anybody can go get a loan. You don't even need credit to go get a loan. And you can buy something on credit, but to demonstrate it flat out, free and clear, that's the trick. So, good for you. Who had their hand up? Sarah.
So this is like a lighthearted kind of fun thing. So I worked with Kate, she's my last partner, and she was helping me to express my authentic self. So coming out from behind like doors, so I got highlights and fairy hair in my hair.
I like it.
Thank you. So it's just a simple thing, but you know, for me it was like, I'm gonna do this. And
Lightness is important. We don't have to always be treating for these big, heavy things. You know, what's the purpose of demonstrating a life that we enjoy is to be happy. So go ahead and be happy along the way. Have fairy hair. Anybody else?
My knee's better.
Yay, Kim. Yay, Kim.
John helped me out there.
You see what happens when you start thinking? You start anchoring in all of these great things that have happened. In the beginning, when I say, okay, who's got a demonstration, no, we want to think about it. We want to remember it. We want to anchor it into our psyche, our consciousness, so that we are aware that we are creating amazing lives and that we can create experiences. Good for you. So, we are reading chapter 6, man's relationship with the spiritual universe. Am I out of the picture over there, am I not? Yep. This. And I love this chapter because it talks about why treatment works, it talks about who we are, and it talks about the real crux to the individual of these concepts of science of mind. And so we start off with this idea that what is true for the universe is true for us individually. And we go back to this basic premise. I'm on page 11 of your study guide. We go back to this basic premise of oneness, that there's only one thing going on. Doesn't matter what we call it, it doesn't matter how you look at it, there's only one. And if there is only one, then that oneness, remember Thomas Troward, the oneness must be manifest in its entirety at every point simultaneously. And so if there's only one, then there can't be God and me. There's only the one. And so what is true of the one must be true of me. That if the wave is in the ocean, then what is true of the ocean must be true of the wave. And you cannot separate the wave from the ocean. You cannot separate you from the presence of the divine. You are an individualized expression. Sometimes I like to look at it as like a point in time and space, a point of focus in time and space, but there's no separation between whatever you are and whatever God is or whatever spirit is. Whatever is true for the infinite must be true of the individual. Whatever is true in the absolute must be true of the relative. And now those of you who read the material, you're going to say, but wait a minute, Ernest, right up front goes into this idea that all of us is God, but we are not all of God, which doesn't hold any water. That was his pullback on being too out there and saying, well, we are all of God. But mathematically, in quantum physics, then whatever is true of the point must be true of the whole. So that statement, even though it was written by the great Ernest Holmes, is not true. It's not true. That was his little bit of hedging his bet showing up. Because if you've got all of you is God, but I am not all of God, then there's a point where I stop and that of God that I am not starts. And all of a sudden you don't have the oneness anymore. And I'll grant you it's a big leap, but it's an important one not to hedge on. Otherwise you go into, well, I can only do so much. I'm just a part of God. I'm just a little old me. Now, all of me is God, but I'm not all of God. Oh my God, I can't be that big. I'm only a part of God. And immediately we have self-imposed limitations, self-imposed restrictions, and we've taken this magnificent idea of oneness and we've cut it. And as soon as you cut the oneness, you have the two-ness. And as soon as you have the two-ness, literally, time and space will not hold together, and we are not here. So just understand that when you read this book, first of all, it was a long time ago. Secondly, someone other than Ernest edited it into this revised edition. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the God's honest truth for you. Take it in and chew it up and savor it and try it out and see how it works for you. So I wanted to bring that up right away in case there was some discussion on that. Do you have any comments or questions about that?
Question.
Jack?
So why is it that we can't create planets and universes and so forth then?
You do.
I've been sleeping then.
How do you know you haven't created universes and planets? You're focused in this reality, in time and space. Is that all of Jack? Absolutely not. You know, you may have other simultaneous lives going on. Did you ever read the Seth material?
No.
Oh, she had a cute little easy book called The Education of Oversoul 7. And it was the education of this oversoul and his 7 different lives that were going on in different times and different spaces. They were all on planet Earth. It was a cute little story that explained spiritual principle and reincarnation and all of that stuff, except it was all happening simultaneously. But the point is that just because we're focused in time and space, we don't know what's going on. People come to me all the time and say, you were in my dreams last night. You told me this. You gave me this important piece of information. And I'm going, well, I'm glad I was in your dreams because I wasn't sleeping. But I don't know what I'm doing other than in my conscious awareness. I don't know other things that are going on, but I wouldn't doubt a bit that you were creating infinite universes and experiences. Yes. Ophia and then Sarah.
I think on that note that for me the concept that time isn't linear is a real kind of trying to wrap your mind around that kind of helps with those kind of understanding that it's actually all happening right now, but our brains have made constructs of plot lines for it to make sense for us, but in reality, like, it's not linear. So
Right. I remember when Y2K was coming about, and afterwards, at that time I was studying with Will Rockingbear, and he said some people went through Y2K. They went through the crash of the electric grid and governments falling apart and all of the hardship and the lack of things. That some people lived in an alternate universe where that happened. And I thought, wow, good for you, Barbara. You didn't do that. But when I start to think about these thoughts, it just boggles my mind. What are we doing? And what are the other planes of experience going on right now? Sarah?
So then, could it be accurate to say that the authority, power that the one wields is ours
Yes.
to wield as well?
Yes, and that's what your whole reading was about tonight. About free will, about choice, about all of the amazing ability that we have to live our lives and create a life that is uniquely ours. But we do that because of oneness. We would have no creative ability at all if it wasn't for the one. There would be no universal subjectivity in which our individual subjective mind is immersed, that is the portal or the doorway to set spiritual law in motion and then manifest experiences. That couldn't happen if there was my mind, your mind, God's mind, if we were all chopped up into little separate people. And so, if Ernest had had, I think, the benefit of another 50 or 75 years of thinking about this, about some more science, because they had the science back then, of more science and really willing to look at it, or if it was even Ernest that wrote that. I don't know how much of Maud Allison Lathan turned the original textbook into the revised textbook, but I think that he would have come along with that. Because even though it's a big stretch and people go, well, that's why you people are just so egotistical. You think you're God and you think you're all of God, but that's the only way it works. Either we are all of the infinite or we are none, or we are nothing, or we don't exist. So I encourage you, when you want to pull back a little bit and say, well, I can't handle this because I'm not all of the creative power. I would venture to say, yes, you are. You are all of the creative power, and you can have as much of that as you can open your awareness and your ability to accept that creative power. So I encourage you to grab it all. Grab it all so that you can demonstrate. I love the phraseology, and I said that intentionally in the opening treatment. My word is the word of God, and I speak my word with all of the power and authority of creation itself. Now, I may not totally believe that, but I'm going to keep telling myself that, and I'm going to keep moving in that direction and opening up to that, because the choice, other than doing that, is to pull back and constrict and say, oh, well, you know, my team only has a little God, and their side of the team may have more God, so then they're going to win. You know, it's such a riot when the football team's been down. Oh, Lord, please let us win. Come on, people. But we can go there into segments of spirit. And the mystical aspect of this teaching is that there are no segments. That there's only that individualized expression, that point of the divine, in and as each and every one of us, and there's no doorway on it, there's no lock on it, there's no limit to it. We are a portal, and what we're a portal to is all that there is. And you can feel that when you do your meditations, when you are lifted out of yourself. You can feel that greater something that you know you're a part of, you're an opening to. Ernest said the veil is very thin. You know, you reach beyond that veil and you get a sense of something that's amazing. So I didn't want that one line to stop you. Drew.
I'm in a little group, a very large group, that one lady has expressed that she experiences and can see different realities shifting, sometimes in her car as she's a passenger. And she's like, does anybody else do this? And about 30 people like, yeah, it happens all the time. The layers, the veils are so thin.
I was in Orlando. My oldest grandson was being born prematurely in 4.5 months. I was flying from here to the hospital. And I went through an intersection in Orlando, and a truck ran the red light. And I screamed out, no. And on the other side of the intersection, I got out of the car, and I could see my skid marks, and the truck marks stopped, and the truck rematerialized on the other side of the intersection. So yeah, we're jumping around in different realities, jumping around in different places. This is your happy reality, this is your miserable reality, this is your prosperous reality, this is your poor reality. Which one do you want to jump into? And with the whole idea of a quantum leap, there's a jump that takes no time and travels no distance.
But
And that's just math.
I'm absolutely sure, though, that there's some reality where all the socks are in one dryer.
Susan.
Going back to what you said before, and I don't remember the exact words, but you probably do, where you believe, but maybe you don't believe all the time.
Mhm.
Is that what you said? That is really so reassuring for me to hear that. I believe, and I really believe, and I believe more and more all the time, and I'm more confident in my belief, and I love it, but sometimes not so much.
And that's why we practice.
Yeah.
That's why, like David said, what was your phrase? I am,
Oh, I'm living in a stream of clear, direct knowing and right action.
stream of clear, direct knowing and right action. So we practice telling ourselves that.
Yes.
No, I'm living in a stream of clear, direct knowing and right action. No, I am clear about who I am. I am accepting all that is mine now. I am accepting all that is mine now. I am God itself. I have all the power. I have all the opportunity. I have all the support. That is mine now. And we just keep telling ourselves over and over and over again. They talk about in this chapter, how do you change the race consciousness that is part of universal subjectivity. How do you change your subjective mind? Well, you do it with conscious thought. You do it with practice. You do it by telling yourself that which you want to be and that which you want to know. And then, before you know it, you know it. You can treat yourself to not have doubt. You can treat yourself to be clear. You can treat yourself to be strong, you know, whatever that is. You can treat yourself for that by telling yourself that and changing the thoughts and beliefs that you're putting down into your subconscious mind. Then you change what you hold in your subconscious mind. And I'll just go ahead and jump. I'm looking at the clock. Because we have this universal subjectivity. There's the teaching symbol. Let's do two of them. We have the relative, or better yet, the individual. Individual and the absolute. Oh, no. Let's do the universal. So you have spirit, law, body. These are not different. They're just different ways of looking at it. And in the middle, you have subjective. So this would be universal subjectivity and individual subjectivity. These are overlaid onto each other. When we are having hidden beliefs, that's why we did 2 weeks on hidden beliefs. When we have hidden beliefs, they're down here. They're thoughts, they're feelings, they're ideas that we are not consciously aware of. They're in our unconscious, if you want to use that word, although nothing is unconscious. They are in our subjective. And so we just see the world, that's the way it is, that's normal. And in here, you've got all of the individual subjectivity in universal subjectivity. It's like that's the doorway from the individual to the universal. So we've got all of these things in our individual subjectivity, and pile them all together, and what we have is called race consciousness. Race consciousness, which is all of the thoughts and the feelings and the experiences and the ideas of the entire human race, and you are affected by that. Conversely, you affect race consciousness. Have you noticed that when Christmas comes around, people get crazy? When a hurricane's coming, people get crazy. When an election is coming, people get crazy. When there is a famine predicted, people get crazy. When there is an outbreak of something, people get crazy. It's because we are all connected over here. It's not a good R. We need a better R. We're all overlaid on top of each other. All you have to do to see that in action is right before Christmas, go to the mall.
No.
Go to the mall, walk around, and then leave and check yourself out. Do you have different feelings than when you went in? Do you have different thoughts than when you went in? Like people are, whatever, dirty, rotten, racket, cratchits. Do you have feelings that maybe you're angry, maybe you're upset, maybe you're tense, you're anxious? Those were not yours. You picked those up flying around in the mall. And that's just a little tiny example of how we affect each other. So when the world is going crazy, if you start feeling that, it's really important for you to be clear. No, I am divinely guided. I'm in the flow. I'm clear about who I am. I'm a being of light and love. I don't care what people are doing around me. I know who I am. It's important for you to be clear about that because you can pick up these other things. That's how we treat for each other. Me, on the individual level, I know for and about Amanda. And I know it in my subjective. I know it. I get it. It's not just I'm trying to think it anymore. I'm trying to make it happen anymore. I know it deep within me. Well, where is that deep within me? It's in my subjective nature. I have subjectified my knowing of joy for Amanda. And so it's over here. See, I'm over here. Barbara. And I am knowing for Amanda. How in the world does it get over to Amanda? There's no time, no space. It can't travel through a distance to get to Amanda. It's through this universal subjectivity of which we are all immersed in this giant subjective mind. And our portal to that is our subjective mind. So I know something inside of myself and I really get it, and all of a sudden it's in Amanda. It's that knowing of truth for and about Amanda, and it has an impact on her. So in Amanda's circle, down here, that's Barbara's treatment. Then it shows up, Amanda, as physical form. So I know something for and about Amanda. I take it from a conscious thought. I subjectify it. It moves through universal subjectivity into Amanda's creation and shows up in her life. Isn't that amazing? I mean, this is some of the most amazing stuff I've ever heard. And it's not separate. There's no distance involved. We're all overlaid on each other. We're inside of each other because we are each other. So what I know for someone shows up in their life. What can we do for the world with that? I mean, we can demonstrate all kinds of cool things. But how can we use that opening to have peace on earth? To have more than enough food for everyone? To have people have basic human rights and dignity? There's a portal within each one of us that will affect every man, woman, and child on this planet. How are we using that? If we're going around all pissed off about something, then we're only feeding that cosmic soup with upset. And so somebody goes to war, somebody steps on a mine, something like that. If we can stay in that clarity of consciousness, not only do we get the bennies, but we can affect change for everybody because we are all one. That's what it means when we say we are one. In Lakish and Lakim, you are another myself. I am another of you. We can do that by keeping our consciousness clear, by keeping our subjective mind clear. There's a chapter in one of the books, I think it's in Basic Ideas of Science of Mind, where Ernest has entitled it, Clearing Out the Storehouse of Subjective Mind. And he likens it to cleaning out a barn. And you know what you shovel out of a barn. And he encourages us to go inside of ourselves and shovel all of that stuff out of our subjective mind by looking at what we believe, looking at what we think, looking at what we say, looking at how we act, and doing whatever we need on a conscious level to redirect those ideas and subjectify, to really know that all is well, that there's more than enough, that everyone's healthy, happy, and whole. And when we do that, we clear out our subjective mind, but there's no difference between my subjective mind and your subjective mind, or our subjective mind and universal subjectivity. There is no difference. So when I clear that out, when I'm clear, it affects everybody. And I believe it goes so far not only to affect everybody on the planet in space, but affect everybody in time, which includes everyone who has ever been alive and everyone who is ever going to live on this planet. And I'll just dance you a little bit in my head. So how do we change the past? Science says it's a puzzle, that we can change the future so easily. We can just decide which road to turn down and change the future. Mathematically, it is equally easy to change the past. So how do we change the past? How do we take away wars and atrocities and famines and all of these things? Can we, through that universal subjectivity, change not only the future but the past? And can we change it for everybody? I mean, what are we doing here on planet Earth? Did we come to affect great change, to awaken the planet to who we really are? And will we all get to a point where all of these other things just never happened? Where we all just incarnated on planet Earth to live a life of love and joy and peace and happiness and prosperity? And will we get to the point where that already was our past? That's all based on this idea of oneness. When people say, oh, there's only one power and presence, and that's the beginning of your treatment, I encourage you to ponder a little bit what you're meaning by that, because all of the power is in the idea of oneness. All of the power that is yours is in the idea of oneness. Does that make sense? I just think it's fantastic. So he talks about suffering, he talks about free will. Are we done with this? I'm done with it. So I've heard people say, if joy is all that there is, if prosperity and health and wholeness and love is all that there is, then why were we not created to just be joy-filled beings? The problem with that is this idea of oneness. That if you have oneness, you must have infinite possibilities within the one. If you were created simply to be blissed out all the time, you would have no freedom. It would be a limitation. If there was a limitation, there would be no oneness. Nothing would hang together. We've been all over that. So freedom must be an integral part of who we are, of what we are. Because we're created out of infinite possibilities, that is what we are. We cannot be limited in any way, shape, or form. However, because we have free will, we can choose to focus on something that appears to create lack and limitation and struggle and suffering. But then we blame it on some outside deity and say somebody is making me struggle and suffer and feel miserable. When truly it was just our own freedom that allowed us to believe in struggle and suffering and lack and limitation, and then to create that. But you know, if we created it, we can uncreate it and create something else. If we are the ones who chose what to focus on, and now we're experiencing the effect of our cause, we can choose to focus on something else. So everything that you are doing in your life is simply a manifestation of your freedom. You are so free, you are so powerful that you can create poverty in an essence of pure infinite prosperity. You can create feeling alone and unloved when there's only love. You are so powerful that you can do all of that stuff. But understand that you can as easily reverse it, or easier now, because you know what you're doing. You can reverse all of that, by getting a hold of your thinking, by clearing out the storage of your subjective mind, by allowing yourself to examine your beliefs, to change the way you think about life, and to redirect spiritual law to a place where you're filled with joy about it. And some people come in here from Eastern philosophies and they just go, well, it's karma. You know, karma shmarma. There is cause and there is effect. And if karma is the effect of your cause, okay, there's karma. But you don't have to live out the effect of your cause if you don't want to. How do you change the effects?
Change your thoughts.
You change your cause. So if you've got something going on and you want to call it karma, I don't really care what you call it, I don't believe that, but you have an effect of your cause. If you want a different effect, you have a different cause. And when you create a different cause, you get a different effect. And you can do that with anything. You can do it anyhow, any way. Jane.
Can you just invent a cause?
Please invent a cause. Invent a cause that you're happy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You're welcome. So then he goes on to evil and sin and heaven and hell. I love this stuff. There's a place in the textbook farther in that says sooner or later these beliefs, he's talking about current day religious beliefs, will be set aside and tossed on the scrap heap of ideas that used to be thought to be true. And I'm totally paraphrasing, but this idea that of sin, even though we know what the original meaning of the word sin was, you still have Bible thumpers in pulpits and on television telling people they're full of sin. Well, sin was just an archer's term. It simply meant to miss the mark, and that is the true translation of the word. And even when we hear it only meant to miss the mark. If I pull my bow back and I fire and miss it, I go, sin. I mean, it's not this black mark on my soul that's going to have me burn in hell forever. It's equivalent to, oops. That's all that it is. And so when we look at this idea of sin, oh, I've sinned. Oh, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. What a crock. The whole thing. So when we look at that as, we're not being punished for our sins. We missed the mark. That's a cause. There is an effect to that. If we go around and we're a dirty, rotten rack-and-fratchet, we're going to get dirty, rotten, rack-and-fratch stuff back. We're going to get it back from people. We're going to get it back from experiences because we're focused on that. We're creating that. If we go around with hate in our hearts, we will create hate back. It'll either come at us or we will experience it. If we go around focusing on limitation or suffering or struggling, we're going to create that in our lives. We're not being punished for it. We experience the effect of our causes. If you want to use the word punish, we're being punished by it. But by what? By our own thoughts, our own focus, our own choices in life, our own way of seeing the world creates our own experience of lack and limitation, which then we call punishment. There is nobody outside of us who is hurting us. There's nothing outside of us, period. There's only that which we focus on. As big as we can expand our consciousness to embrace our good, that's how much good we will get. And so you want to practice expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding until you're stretched as wide as you can get to take all the good that there is, and still there's an infinite amount that you're not even touching. That's your job. So heaven and hell, we had 2 popes now say there is no hell. Pope John Paul and Pope Francis. They both said there is no hell. It was fascinating to me. John Paul was what, like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
That article was run in all of the major newspapers around the world except in the United States. There was not a mention of it. And social networking was not as prevalent there, or I think it would have gotten picked up. But I had to research a Canadian newspaper to find it. And I got up on Sunday and said, great news, everybody, there's no hell. Pope John Paul said it. But I was more fascinated with how in the world did they stop every newspaper in the States from printing it. Troy.
Just curious, if there's no hell, what's his thoughts on purgatory?
There can't be any purgatory. There's no heaven.
I know, it's a joke.
Okay. This is serious stuff, Troy. Agatha and Drew and then Jane, I've hit a nerve.
Well, I tend to think of purgatory, somebody having that experience, it's because they believe in it and they create that experience for themselves.
Sure.
You know, but it's not a place that anything or anybody sends us, you know.
How can it be a place when you're out of time and space?
Exactly.
There is no place.
But, because I had some friends who said they saw angels and things, and then they were involved in demon wars and all this, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You can do that, but I'm gonna go over here and.
But you know, even in this plane, we see angels and we're involved in demon wars.
So.
Yeah, we experience heaven and hell and purgatory.
Yes.
On this plane.
Yes.
Yes. Drew and then Jane.
To the hidden belief thing.
Yes.
In my hidden beliefs, that were not so hidden, there was many memories that I didn't want to give up, of cherished things and people that I didn't want to let go of. And I found that transcending all of it, I didn't let go of them.
No.
They're still there. I can go wallow in them if I choose at my leisure, but there's no connection anymore as far as
It doesn't hurt you.
someone else's shoes are connected to me.
Yeah. I like to change the story. I'm big on changing stories. And so if I want to look at something from my childhood, I'll look at what good came out of it and I'll give myself a pat on the back for creating that. You know, maybe strong, maybe moxie. I'm undaunted. That's all you've got? A little criticism about my talk? Oh, please. What is my phrase? I've heard worse from better. Jane.
Oh, so therefore, if I miss the mark, which I often do, instead of dwelling on that, if I just sort of forgive or just forget it, it'll just go away?
Yes. Focus on something happy.
Uh-huh.
And then you won't create the effect of the cause of missing the mark. You'll create the effect of the happiness.
And the happiness comes from where?
You.
Ah, I see, so that's all. So if I make a mistake, then if I'm real thrilled, that's okay.
Of course it is. There's a wonderful word called oops. It takes all the heat off. Oops. Marriage number 1. Oops. Marriage number 2. Oops.
That's why there's erasers on pencils.
Erasers on pencils. Good, good, good. There's no limitation on principle. There's only a limitation on how we use it, on whether or not we understand it, on what we're doing with it. We can literally have anything we want. I want peace on earth. I want people who walk through this planet as if it's the Garden of Eden because we've all created infinite amounts of good. That's what I want. I think that's why I'm here. I think that's why you're here too. You know, we should be here for a reason. We went through puberty. God, we went through adolescence. There should be some higher purpose to it all.
Reward.
So there's no limitation on you. I don't care what your story is. The only limitation is in you. And the only way it's in you is because you put it there. It's not inherently part of your nature. I think that's why when people do transition, there is such joy. There's such joy in the stepping over. By the way, those of you who love Mac McCracken, her mom stepped over this morning. Mac McCracken.
Is she from here?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she sounds familiar.
Yes. So if I'm going by your questions or comments, let me know. What can change the subjective state of our thought? Your conscious thought. Yes, yes, yes. We talked about how there's not two different minds. There's not me and God. There's not my mind and God's mind. I'm not actually putting this treatment out. Even though I love that phrase, I fling it out into universal mind. There's no place for it to go. It's all happening right here and now. Everything is right where we are. Everything around us is right where we are. Everything comes from the inside and shows up as the outside. And it doesn't need to require you to be afraid of anything or worried about anything, because then that just creates a new cause. And you demonstrate the outpicturing of that. Does that make sense? Good, good, good. Oh, we don't hold thoughts. Hold a good thought for me. No, where am I gonna hold it? What have I got in my pocket? There's no place to hold it. Thought is a movement of mind. That creative energy is a movement. Everything is moving. There's no place to hold a thought. And so what he says is that we know truth. We know truth. Well, what in the world does that mean? To know truth. What does that mean to you?
To be it.
To be it.
Internalize it.
To internalize it, to have it be part of your essence, that there's not a real active thought process going on. You're not trying to will something into being. Remember we talked about willpower and how you can use willpower to create, but it's exhausting and you don't get the best creation. There's a lot of letting go in creation, because you may be treating for one thing, and the universe may be manifesting because of all of your consciousness. It's not outside of you, but because you are a clear avenue of flow, then there's greater good for you than just the one. So when you're trying to will it into form, you're micromanaging it, you're putting a lot of physical energy on it, and the knowing that it's already done is a breath of fresh air. It's a relief. It's a, okay. So you're not trying to make it happen anymore. You're letting it go, knowing that it's already done. That's why we say, and so it is. And I've had people, I had a board member once in the beginning come up to me all mad after a Sunday celebration and say, how can you say, and so it is, when it isn't? And I said, how will it ever be if you can't say, and so it is? And he left. He just couldn't wrap his head around that idea that you know it to be so right now, regardless of circumstances. It's not, you don't believe it because you see it because you first believe it. And that knowing is what creates. And you can do this teaching at all kinds of different levels. I strongly encourage you to rise as high as you can and do it the easy way, which is to see the presence of the divine in every person, in every experience, in every event, and in yourself. To see prosperity, health, wholeness, love, joy, success. Not to try to put it there because it's not missing. Whenever someone treats for someone that is experiencing an illness, they don't try to put health in the person. Stay still, let me pack some health in you. That's not the way it works. All they do is look beneath the experience of illness, which is made by free will, which we have to have since we have infinite possibilities in us, and they see that core of spirit showing up as us, which is perfect, whole, and complete. And that is way easier than trying to make it happen, than trying to push it in, trying to hold a thought. People who say, hold a thought for me, or I'm sending you, or what is the phrase that's out? Prayers lifted. What the heck does that mean? Prayers lifted with a little heart, lifted to where? Prayers don't go anywhere. You know inside of yourself. If you want to use the word prayer, you pray inside of yourself. You are the doorway to all that is. You're not gonna send, and where are you lifting them to? There's no heaven, you know, there's nothing to lift them to. I hear religious scientists say this, prayers lifted. No, I know the truth right now. That's where the power is. And that's where the ease is. The ease and the grace of knowing the truth. And you get there by vigilance, awareness, and practice of thought. Do not give yourself the cop-out to let yourself run amok. Robert Bitzer used to say, we don't sacrifice principle even on special occasions. Just because, well, didn't you see the news? Of course I can get upset. Well, you can get upset, but you're going to create your own hell. You're going to set a new cause in motion that will be your karma, and you will experience the effects of that, and you changed your whole life because of this outside thing. Don't do that. Relax back into the knowing of the presence of spirit, because there is only one. Everybody really is fine. Everybody is on their perfect and right path. Everybody is experimenting with the law of mind. They may not know it, but they are. Everybody has all the power. Everybody is God. And when we can see that, we go through that immersion of connection, of universal subjectivity, and our contribution to the cosmic soup lifts up instead of pushes down. You're not holding, you're not lifting, you're not sending. I'm going to send you some love. Sometimes I say that, and I know that it's not right, but it just seems to fit the moment. I did that with Mac this morning. Found out her mom passed, and I said, I'm sending you some love. She said, thank you. But really what it was is, I'm knowing all is well in you. And she said, I felt that, thank you. So, you don't send anything. What does nothing happen to you, nothing happens to you that doesn't happen through you mean? You're creating your own reality. Tim?
That's what I said, you create your own.
So what's going on when you think something's happening to you?
We're paying attention.
Who created that?
I did.
Yes. Nothing can happen to you. It can only happen through you, because everything is happening from the inside out. Does that make sense? I want to read you one of my favorite paragraphs in the whole book. It's the conclusion to this reading. 120.
What page is it?
128?
Last paragraph.
Yeah. I have it almost memorized, but such is the power of right thinking, that it cancels and erases everything unlike itself. It answers every question, solves all problems, is the solution to every difficulty. It is like the sunlight of eternal truth, bursting through the clouds of obscurity and bathing all life in a celestial glory. It is the absolute with which we are dealing, and nothing less. Let's take a break, get your treatment partners, and if we get back early, I'm going to point out a couple of things in the readings, that at least one thing that's a different translation than the original text. Come on back. So I've got a little housekeeping. Tomorrow morning, John and I are getting on a plane and going to the beach.
Again?
Yes. Sally Robbins is coming over from Charlotte to do the Sunday talk. And next Monday, Lynn Villa is doing her very first presentation of her process. It's called The Path to Healing.
The art of healing.
The art of healing. And if anyone knows how to heal, Linda. So get up and share a little bit. I strongly encourage you to come. There are going to be a lot of other people here too. It will be in the sanctuary, but that is class next week.
Okay, all right.
Hello, hope you guys will come out next week, and I'll be sharing my story, and I'll be sharing a lot of information that I've never shared before. So I'll be telling you a little bit about myself, and my background, and how I grew up, and how I came to be the person that I am. And I'll be sharing about what happened to me. I call it the transformation, what occurred to me on December 2nd, 2017, and how I recreated my body, and the steps, the tools, the processes, the thought processes that I used before. So everything up to the point, and everything that occurred like during and after. So it'll be informative. It'll also be, the first hour will be a talk, and then the second hour will be tools. We'll do hands-on tools of a tool that I use on an annual basis to manifest 12 key, I call them targets or goals. So it will be enlightening, it'll be fun, it'll be revealing. So I hope that you'll come out and support me. And also, the purpose of the talk is to show you, or to share with you, that it's really about expanding consciousness, that it's really about shifting consciousness, and that we, as individuals here, we're the way-showers of this universe, and that what we do can impact and change the world. So what I did is the norm. It's coined a miracle, but that is just how it is that we're supposed to be. So I hope to see you next week.
Yay. Since we have a few minutes, I wanted to go over just some things that are interesting to me in the reading. If you were here yesterday, you heard me quote the original 1926 Science of Mind textbook, lesson number 2, introduction, first paragraph. Mental science, which is the science of mind and spirit, makes a tremendous claim when it states that it can free the individual from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. But it makes this statement without hesitation and without qualification. It does not retract from that claim, and it never will. It does, however, carefully set forth the conditions under which it operates and the laws governing life, warning man that unless he understands these conditions and obeys these laws, he will not receive full benefit from the science of mind. 1926.
Is it he or she?
He. Everything was he with Ernest. It was in the 20s.
That was
In your reading this week, and I'm always looking for what changed from the original textbook to the revised. So in your reading from last week on page 107, it says, the science of mind and spirit makes a tremendous claim when it states that the individual should be free from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. It does, however, carefully set forth the conditions under which freedom operates and the laws governing life, stating in no uncertain terms that unless man understands these conditions and obeys these laws, he will not receive full benefit from its teachings. So in the original text, it says, we make a tremendous claim when we say that these teachings will. That it says, when it states that it, meaning these teachings, can free the individual from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. Instead of saying that the individual should be free, it says, this will free you, instead of you should be free. And it also completely ignored the part that said, but it makes this statement without hesitation and without qualification. It does not retract from that claim, and it never will. So for me, that's the moxie of it.
That's a major part of the paragraph.
That's a major part of the paragraph. It says, "This will free you, any individual, from the bondage of sickness, poverty, or unhappiness." And we make this claim without hesitation, without qualification. We have never backed down from it, and we never will. So in looking at the revised textbook, for me, it's just a little soft-pedaled. Soft-pedaled. And some people have said, oh, Ernest Holmes came up with all this stuff himself. He didn't. He synthesized a lot of things. He synthesized Greek philosophy, he put a lot of Bible in there. He synthesized a lot of Hinduism into all of this. Is that interesting to you?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. One of my other favorite authors is Wallace Wattles of The Science of Getting Rich, written in 1910. 1910. And this original textbook was written in 1926, and the revised textbook was revised in 1937. Now, do you remember in Wallace Wattles, let me see where it is, there is a thinking stuff which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance creates the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can, and I'm saying this by Broad, man can create a thought, and by impressing it upon by impressing it upon unformed substance, can cause the thing which he thinks about to be created. That's Wallace Wattles' standard mantra, and he builds on it. It's his thesis. He builds on it concept by concept by concept. So that's Wallace Wattles. And then in your reading tonight, on page 126, he says, "There is one infinite life acting through law, and this law is mental. Law is mind in action. We are surrounded by an infinite subconscious, impersonal, neuroplastic, and ever-present thinking stuff, from which all things come, and which, in its original state, permeates and penetrates all things. By impressing our thought upon this substance, we can cause it to produce for us that which we think." And that's just pure Wallace Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. So he's got stuff in there from Thomas Troward, from Emerson, from the Greeks, from the Hindus, from the Bible, the Christian Bible, and a lot of the New Thought authors. If you know the authors, you can see Mary Baker Eddy, and you can see Emma Curtis Hopkins in there, all interwoven. Emerson or Ernest was a genius in his ability to synthesize concepts and to bring things together so that anybody could understand it. But because those two showed up in tonight's reading, I just wanted to point them out to you. Who's talking? Drew.
I see it as a master artwork of word painting.
That's great. It's great. He took all of these different ideas, a lot of Hinduism, because Thomas Troward was a judge in the Punjab. And so he was in India for decades, and he absorbed all of this stuff. He comes back to England, and he's all, "I'm going to give lectures on mental science." Well, that was all Hinduism that he was coming up with. So I just thought it was fascinating and thought I would just share that with you a little bit. David Mark.
I think Wattles says something much more that's really very important that Ernest suggests but doesn't say quite as clearly. But Wattles says by thinking and acting in a certain way.
In a certain way, in the certain way, not
Right.
a certain way, the certain way.
Right, but the fact that he says thinking and acting.
Absolutely. I love Wallace Wattles. If you don't know Wallace Wattles, he is on our website for a free PDF download or a free audio book written by yours truly.
You mean spoken by yours truly?
Spoken by yours truly. Yes, I read it and spoke it. Any other questions or comments? I know you're gonna have a great time with Lynn. I'm very grateful that you're gonna let that be videotaped so that people can watch it. It's gonna be great. Bring your friends. You know, run over and left for dead. What do you do with that?
Let them do what to do.
Glenn knew what to do, exactly. Okay, take out what you're gonna give.
That sounds like a t-shirt.
What would Lynn do now?
Trademark.
And those of you watching online, you too can be part of the support of this ministry. On your YouTube page is a donate button. Push that button and it'll take you right to PayPal. Whatever you send is greatly appreciated. If you put a comment on our YouTube page, or if you send a note with your donation, I will read it and respond. Thank you for being a part of this class. Thank you for everybody who's here. We're doing great work in the world, and I am happy to be a part of it. So what I know is that this power and presence of infinite life is prosperity beyond measure, abundance in its essence, and it manifests as me now. I am the life, the prosperity, and the abundance of all that is, and I speak my word as the word of God, claiming into form prosperity, abundance, life, light, and love for everyone in the sound of my voice. I know that we were created, that we have incarnated on planet Earth to live the rich life, to be blessed in every way, to be in our joy in every moment. And so I accept that for each one of us with great gratitude and thanksgiving for this life we get to live on planet Earth, knowing that we always have more than enough to do whatever it is that is ours to do, and we are deeply blessed. And in that gratitude, I simply release this knowing of truth into all that is, into the mind of God, the heart of God, and the body of God, because I know that it is all God, and so it is.
So it is.
And I know that everything in these baskets is blessed because we showed up and gave. God in form as us, with our face, our smile, our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. What an amazing expression of generosity, of love, and of light. And so I see that light as it fills up this room, from the floor to the ceiling and all between the walls. This very air is rich and blessed with God as us. As that movement of spirit happens, each one of us is touched. We are blessed and we are healed. And that energy goes on and on and on and on and on, touching, blessing, and healing every being on this planet and shooting out into the heavens to continue its magnificent work. I know that energy is always here and always now, touching every one of us here tonight, everyone who has ever been here, and everyone yet to come. And so it is. I love you guys. Have a wonderful 10 days.
No homework?
You,